Welcome back to Five Questions. This is your girl, AJ, the Suburban Princess, here with a very, very, very important guest, someone who I've listened to for, well, I'm 45. I have no shame about my age. Over 20 years, I've listened to him on radio. I know he was a writer. He is the most eccentric, lovable, funny, sarcastic, which I love, and knows so much about sports, especially in our local Philly sports region. Please welcome the incomparable, the legend, Mike Missanelli.
Oh, how you doing, AJ? It's good to be with you. It's been a while since we chatted or saw each other.
Yeah, and the last time I saw you, I think I scared you because I always want to hug people when I see them. So I probably like made you just step back a little bit, but
No problem at all.
either way, thank you for joining Five Questions. We're gonna go and we're just gonna just hit these as they come because I got so many questions I could ask you, but we ain't got that much time. First of all, I want to ask, now that you are doing the podcast world, and as you see me, I'm doing my thing here. What irks you most about this new podcast world?
I don't know if anything really irks me about it. It's just the kind of the next stage of media, and I didn't really understand that much about it until the Bet Rivers people came to me and I said, well, because I had no experience with it at all. So they just said, we want you to be you. And so, like, the way I did my show was kind of like a living, breathing entity. I would make shows within shows
Mm-hmm.
because I would got feedback from callers and things like that. Podcast was completely different in that it's the same me, but without me producing a show within a show. Like
Right,
I'll have a script in my head and it'll be the same me, and
right.
I'll go over the same, like I'll have my hub on what I really want to talk about, and then I'll spin off into other modern culture things. But on the radio, those things came up like when you didn't expect it.
Yeah.
And this is more of a planning thing. So they want me to do 45 minutes, and it's just me unchecked for 45 minutes, just pontificating basically without the caller input. And I just, it's funny because radio, you get immediate feedback.
Right.
People are talking to you and they're either liking what you're doing or not. And you engage in an argument, which I love. That's what I love about radio, the
You did
argument part
like that.
about it. But, I have this lawyer thing in me where
Yeah.
I always want to convince people of my closing argument. And it's just that without like I'm putting the closing argument out there, but it's just like you either accept it or you don't.
Yes.
I from that point on, I just let it go and let it go out into space, and hopefully people tune in to it. But it's really kind of different. But I like the free form because I have total control over it. I can do long form interviews when I get a really good subject. So that part has been really good about the podcast.
Well, that's good because it's funny you mentioned with it's like a new media as they're calling it, because I feel like at this point, you are a seasoned professional. So it's like when you're in this world, especially after when you left the radio world, it's like I was thinking the podcast has to be next for him, but I'm like, does Mikey want to do that? So then when you popped up with the Mike Missanelli podcast, I was so happy. I was like, good. I was like, I want him to do that because I think that would actually even be, like you said, you'd have more control. So I was very happy when you popped up with that.
Yeah, it was really an
Um,
offer I couldn't refuse. I mean, they gave me an offer, and I said, "Well, And their strategy was the Bet Rivers people. The company's called Rush Street Interactive, and they're out of Chicago. So
mhm.
they've gone into major cities and found bigger name people to do the podcast. So I felt like I was joining a good team.
Awesome, awesome. Now, do you think because, you being a writer and everything, and there's a lot of people obviously who are writers who are they're either jumping on the whole athletic thing.com or on the online things, or they're kind of just streamlining doing their own podcasts all over the place. I love to follow a little Les Bowen and stuff because they're funny and I always appreciate them in Philadelphia Daily News days. Do you feel like it hurts journalism or the writing community with this new media?
It doesn't hurt legitimate entities like the Athletic or skilled writers that have been in business for a really long time. But overall, this whole social media world has certainly diluted journalism. When I started out, the Inquirer was like a pinnacle
Yeah.
of journalism. People looked forward to their copy the next morning to find out what was going on. The whole world's turned upside down on that.
Mhm.
So what now produces is that everybody is involved in producing media content. And so when everybody is such in a hurry to produce media content, it's obviously going to be diluted. It's not going to you don't have the time to ferret it out
Yeah.
and check sources and things like that. You're just putting out stuff. It's like the Wild West, really. So like everybody's got a podcast, everybody's got a blog. I mean, I don't know who these people are,
Everybody.
but they certainly
Mhm.
don't have the experience. Like the old guard of sports talk radio is gone because we all came from a place where it was rooted in journalism.
Yep.
And we had to become entertainers through that. But we had a base of how to report and what questions to ask and what our responsibility was to get truth out.
Yep. 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 And that's why I wanted to ask you too, how did you feel with that transition? Because I think when you're a writer, obviously, like you said, you have deadlines and everything. But when you went from that world to even going to radio, that portion of your life, which took obviously most of your career, and obviously how I even knew you and fell in love with you on the radio. So how did you handle it? Did you doubt yourself in that transition? Because I know for me, I'm very quick to doubt myself. So
Yeah,
how
I
did
did.
you deal with that?
I did that myself. I was scared to death.
Hmm.
And I was very reluctant to make that move. And the only reason I think that I made it because Angelo had done it.
Yeah.
Because we worked on the same Inquirer staff, but he was the most serious reporter I could ever imagine. Like he was just dead serious about his profession and
Hmm.
really took it to heart and was dedicated to it. So when he went, I had been doing some weekend stuff. I did a show with Stan Hockman, and Sports Talk Radio to me was just a blast. It was
Hmm.
like a way. Now, when I first broke into journalism, I was kind of shy, but then, like as I evolved into it, my personality started to come out. So, Sports Talk Radio thing was perfect for me at that time. I didn't think it was going to turn into a full time position, and when they offered me the full time position, I went, well. I wanted to change in my life. I was like ready to practice law. I wanted to do something different. And I remember having a conversation with Angela. I go, Angela, this is not like serious stuff. Like I feel like I'm like going into a toy store or something. He goes, you know what? You might feel that way. He goes, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And that kind of resonated with me. And I go, you know what? I got a year to play with. They offered me a 1 year contract. I go, oh, let me take a shot and see if it's fun on a full time capacity. And so when they paired me with Steve Fredericks, who's this like radio veteran, like well-respected radio veteran, I'm scared to death.
Yeah.
And they put me on Evening Drive, like right out of I was fresh face. And so Evening Drive was a big responsibility. But I think I found my voice thanks to Steve because he looked at me as a guy who he could be the straight man for. Like he let me be the brat. And had he not, I don't know if I would have evolved as a sports talk radio host.
Well, you know what? Speaking from people calling me the brat because I'm the baby in the family. The brat is good. The brat makes stuff interesting. As you know, when I used to call into your radio show, as you know, I always had something spicy to say. I always had a crush
Yes.
to announce. You always just tease me about my latest crush. Um, and I look, I'm starting to like Konechny now, so don't judge me. I'm trying to get into the hockey. I'm trying to adore the hockey guys, and Konechny is now someone I crush on besides Dallas Goddard. So that's my update for you.
Yeah, I'm
Just
hoping to get there with you because I have abandoned hockey completely, and
I
it's a
understand.
shame. But there's just too many other priorities. And like when you're doing a podcast, like how many people really want any hockey entertainment right now on my 45-minute podcast? So I really haven't paid much attention to it, and I know they're doing well, and I'm
Yeah,
going to eventually have to pay attention to it. So hopefully, I mean, I like the people in charge, obviously, the new people in charge. So we'll see
yeah.
what happens.
It's just funny to me because I remember when on your days in radio, there will always be that one person like, why don't you talk about the Flyers? And now I find myself watching it because I'm trying to keep the Sixers at an arm's length because I'm not ready to be rejected again in the second round. So I figured find some interest, actually watch a hockey game, which I did, and I enjoyed it. So now I've decided that, I'm going to root for them on the side. I told you I'm very non-committal to any of these 4 for 4, and especially now with the Eagles pissing me off. Now I'm really holding everybody like this.
Well,
I,
that's the biggest lesson I learned as far as the transition goes.
yeah,
And the mantra is play the hits, and hockey is not the hit. And see, a lot of people don't understand it because they
yeah,
embrace their sport and they love their sport. I get it; they love it and
yeah,
they embrace it and they want to feel pride
yeah.
about it. But it's not a hit. And in sports
No,
talk radio, you got to play the hit because you want people to stay right there. And if you
yeah.
go to a topic where they're not feeling it, you're done. They change the station and they're somewhere else. So you got to
And
keep that audience. That's what people don't understand.
and I understood that. And see, someone like me who has learned to be 4 for 4, and even the ones who I'm even learning to embrace a little bit more soccer because my sister loves soccer and she went to FSU, so I got into college football because
Mhm.
of her. But it's like, yeah, you're right. As many times as I watched and listened to the show, even when you're on the radio, when you're on the podcast, yeah, I can totally understand that. And some people just cannot put their brains around that whole idea
No,
that
because
the
they
show
have pride.
runs.
They have pride. They want to think their sport's important, and it is to them, and that's fine. But like when you're trying to run a business, you
Yeah.
can't venture into like the independent parts. You have to
Yes.
play the mainstream parts.
And that's the thing when you're in that part when you're that part where you understand every single sport and all the behind the scenes, the people you've interviewed that are here and no longer here anymore. Um, does it make you feel hopeful? First of all, I always wanted to ask you this just in general because you probably don't watch the WNBA, but
I
didn't we
do.
at
I
one
do watch some WNBA. Yeah.
you do? Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
all about the aces right now. But I when did Philly didn't we have a female WNBA and someone said it was the Rage, but then I thought that was another team. Didn't we have a
I
Philly
don't think we've ever had
thought
a
we did because someone
WNBA
said a
team.
Philly Rage. Okay, well, I want
That
them
might have been. I think we've had a roller hockey team before. We've had a basketball team.
now that would be
That's what I
actually
think it is.
fun.
I don't remember a basketball team being here.
Well,
Maybe you're right. I don't know. It was
they need
Dawn
to
Staley
do it.
would probably
Yeah,
know.
I think that's something I'm gonna dig into. I just thought maybe you might have known that because someone told me that on Twitter that they think that we
Yeah,
had
I
one.
don't remember it.
Yeah. So WNBA hopefully figure it out with Philly because this time. My last question I just want to ask you is so because you're in that retirement portion of your phase of your life, but you're still out there, how do you feel about people who decide, like, say, when a football player moves on, Brian Westbrook, all these other guys who do real estate, and Todd Harriman's and Trey Thomas doing this podcast where Todd is into wineries and stuff. So, what do you see yourself doing in the future? Like, once you're out of the media, do you want to own a business? Do you want to make? Because I know I've got the wine down at the courthouse. I bought some of the wine there. Do you want to
Yeah,
do that as a time
you
thing, or
know,
what are your goals?
I kind of want to just disappear and relax when I
Eh,
retire. Like I'm still kind of dabbling in it here. The podcast is twice a week. I do the post game show,
yeah,
and it's been a good pace for me. It gives me a lot of free time. I mean, I wasn't ready to leave the radio, to be honest with you. I still have a lot of juice left in me.
I know.
So, but
You
you
know,
know,
I know. You
eh,
know, I know.
as time goes on, I try to come up with other. You know, I'm a pretty diversified guy, and the
Hmm.
winery's been a pet project of mine. So, uh, but I think I just want to move to the south somewhere and just play golf and do nothing. And I can always write. I can always like with this new hookup that you can do computer wise. I can do this podcast for forever as long as they want me,
Hmm.
and still like dabble in it. But I don't really have to have plans to do anything. I've
Okay.
always been a guy where I let things come to me,
Hmm.
and I know when it's right. Like right now, I'm trying to learn Spanish. I know a little, but I want to be able to be fluent in Spanish. So if I want to go to some Latin American country, I can converse with people like that. I have little things like that that I want to conquer, but not. You know, I never really thought about owning a business.
Mm.
But my mind, I have a lot of time to think now. You know, it's like
Which could be dangerous
there's a
for you.
lot of hours to think. So like you get a million ideas, and like I know
Yeah.
one will land somewhere along the line.
Well, you know what? You always used to joke when you were on the radio about how you wanted to be a scout. So I'm thinking if you learn Spanish, if you do decide to do that side Philly
I would love to
scouting,
do
you
that.
never know.
In fact, I've inquired about that. I've had made a couple inroads, but I think that I'd have to be some completely retired gray-haired gentleman with a comfortable lounge chair to be ready for that. You know, like right now, I still have a couple things going that I probably wouldn't have enough time to dedicate to that. But you know, that would be a great profession for me. I wouldn't be making a lot of money. I'm just going around looking at players, and I think I could do that really well. I think I could recognize, especially in baseball, who's
Yeah.
got it, who didn't, because I realized what I didn't have, and I look for players that have what I didn't have.
Well, that's why I say, like, I think that's why you would when you joked about that on the radio, but I'm like, I have a feeling Mikey might do something like that because I feel like that would be something that you are definitely passionate about. Because if there's one thing I do remember when you guys used to go on site during Grapefruit League, I remember always the way you would talk about baseball. I feel like is a whole different type of passion than any other sport.
Yeah, I
You
see
know, I'm
more
a listener because I remember that.
yeah, I see more in the game. Baseball is a lot more complicated than people think. But I think you just steered me into my next career. As soon as I conquer the Spanish thing, I'll move to the Dominican.
There you go.
I'll open a little coffee shop. That'll be my front, and then
Yep.
I'll tour Dominican Republic looking for the next Acuna. That I've always
Woohoo!
wanted to do that. I want to find the next Acuna for the
There you
Phillies. So
go.
there it is. Perfect.
You, you might be on a landmine because at this point everybody is looking at this Yamamoto and the other guy that went to the other teams, which I knew we weren't. The Phillies weren't going
Yeah,
to
I
make it.
can't learn Japanese. That'd be
I,
too much for me.
please,
You know, I'll conquer Spanish. I'll do Dominican
I'm
thing.
about
I
to
can't do
say
Japanese thing.
that's enough. Yeah, it's like me brushing up on my Spanish with Duolingo. But I mean my French. I'm more of a French person. But I thank you so much, first of all, for making the time. And I wanted to know if you want to plug anything outside of obviously the Mike Missanelli podcast on all platforms you can listen to now. Him and Darren go back and forth. It's hilarious. And thank you for doing the Bruce impression for the holidays because I was cracking up
I
working
was a
from
little out of
home.
practice, but thank you. I love the thing I miss mostly is the communication between people I would communicate with every day. So the only way I can do that now is through email. So, and I'm glad
Yes.
you reached out email. So it's mike@mikemiss.com. And I'd love to stay in touch with people and converse just in general. That's what I miss.
And if you're still doing the winery, please plug the winery because I know I need to
Yes,
get
the
me another
winery
bottle.
is called Natali Vineyards in Cape
Natal.
May Courthouse, New Jersey. And as we head into the spring, we just got a distribution in some major liquor stores. So all that's
Mm,
going well. But I will
good.
be down there a lot in the spring. And if you stop over during the weekend, if you're headed down the shore or want to make a weekend trip, maybe we can have a glass of wine together.
I'm good with it. I know most of the time I've been trying to get my sister since she and her husband from who used to be a army staff sergeant retired. I'm trying to get them to go to the shore with me downtown because we don't go to the shore naturally, but
Yeah.
I kind of do miss it because my friend who
Well,
lives
you
in
let me
Miami,
know when you're making a weekend trip. I'll sure to be there.
I will tag you on Twitter. Hopefully you'll see it in time before you answer. But anyway, the incomparable Mike Missanelli, thank you so much. I definitely enjoy listening to the show. Shout out to Darren too, because y'all be cracking me up going back and forth on the podcast. So
Thank you,
definitely
AJ.
check
I
that out.
appreciate it. Good to touch base with you.
Yes,
Stay in
Happy New
touch.
Year. Happy New
You
Year. Thank
too.
you. Take
All right.
care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.